Hello, I'm Dave Russell, Vice President of Enterprise Strategy at Veeam Software. Veeam version 12 represents a breakthrough in simplicity and security. Looking at simplicity, workflow simplification reduces the number of steps, meaning when storing and protecting your data, most data protection workflows have many steps associated with them. With version 12, storing and protecting is done in one single step. Data can be written directly to Cloudian's object storage, where object lock provides bulletproof ransomware protection. Now, if we look at reduction in steps, that means no human error involved. It's transparent, meaning simpler and faster is better.
I'm Jon Toor, CMO of Cloudian. Cloudian object storage software lets you store and manage limitless amounts of data on-prem in your own private cloud. It provides a fully S3 compatible storage environment wherever you need it. As a backup target for Veeam, Cloudian is a simple, secure, and scalable storage platform that is proven in hundreds of enterprise deployments worldwide. Now, with Veeam v12, Cloudian and Veeam take it to the next level with a revolutionary data protection workflow that simplifies the architecture, reduces cost, and enhances security. A traditional data protection workflow has multiple storage layers. The first layer is short-term storage, where data is held for a preset period. Data is then moved to long-term storage, which is typically on an object storage platform, such as Cloudian. Veeam v12 simplifies that process. Now data is stored directly to the object storage. This simplifies the workflow and eliminates the cost of that intermediate storage layer. This workflow enhances security too, by employing object lock at the object storage layer. When data is stored to Cloudian, Veeam v12 applies the object lock policy right away. This makes the data unchangeable, so if ransomware strikes, your backup data is protected from hacker encryption. You can recover from an attack with this unencrypted data copy without having to pay ransom. Another benefit with v12 is Veeam's new SOS API. This feature provides exciting new capabilities, including the ability to view Cloudian capacity utilization from within the Veeam UI. Now you can see how much space is used and how much is still available without leaving the Veeam application. The SOS API also helps to ensure best practices with default storage configurations set to optimize Cloudian Hyperstore performance.
Simpler is better, and Veeam version 12 and Cloudian now protect your data better, faster, easier, and at less cost. What this means for the data center is better capabilities, reduced complexity, lower cost, but most importantly, greater operational integrity, knowing that you're free from ransomware.
Why choose Cloudian? You know, there are a lot of reasons why. The biggest one starts with the fact that we are written specifically around the AWS S3 API. We have more commands and more integration into that than any product that's out there. The majority of the folks that say they're object storage are actually using either a gateway or they have some kind of translation, or they use part of an API model to get data moved. Okay, we're the largest compatible one that's out there, period. We're on-prem, okay? We remove those put and get costs that you see every time a bill comes down from Azure, AWS, Google Cloud. Every time you touch or massage your data, do anything to it, there's an extra bill that comes in the mail, okay? So we bypass all of that. We're about the cost of Deep Glacier, and again, on-prem. We have immutable storage, object lock, that allows you to use multiple backup products to create ransom-proof backups with our product. Thus, they can't be altered, deleted, or changed, but you can restore from them. So if you have a ransomware attack or a bad guy gets in, he can never damage your backups, and you can always restore from them and bring your environment back up. So those are just a handful of the reasons of what's there, but it's so much more. Some of the largest banks in Europe use Cloudian storage. Object storage allows you to future-proof your data center. More and more tools are written every day that write direct to object storage. Because why? Because it's easier to manage and maintain. It's more inexpensive to grow, and it allows you to have the flexibility of doing multiple kinds of erasure coding, replication factors back and forth. You can do one namespace, and it can be a global environment. Okay, we have tools as well that can be bundled with it, like HyperIQ, that dig deep into the environment of the Cloudian itself, telling us how the performances are, what the disks are doing, how CPU is, what kind of spikes we're seeing in memory, how to better tune our environment. Those are there to help you do that. Remember, a lot of names are going to pop up and they're going to say, oh, we're object storage and we're just like this and we're just like that. No, they're not. No one's just like Cloudian. Cloudian is the object storage. And we're on-prem because you need your data close. But if you have to send it off-site, we replicate to ourselves or any of the other major players that are out there for a tertiary copy. Thanks so much for spending a minute looking at this. We're Cloudian. Thanks to all our partners and our Veeam users. I wanted to take a couple minutes and introduce myself, but I wanted to tell you why you're so important to us. One, my name is Van Flowers and I go by the Vanimal. I'm a former Veeam instructor and engineer, but now I work for Cloudian. The whole time I was at Veeam, I was talking about how we could do object-related solutions for immutability, ransomware proof, and bringing things together. With version 12 about to drop, we want you specifically to understand the value and the changing thing, the game changer this is going to be in V12, using Cloudian as the target. Here's what I want you to see. Let me whiteboard it for you real quick and go into details. But again, thanks for believing and working with us, because we believe and work with you. Now, everybody who has not seen version 12 of Veeam, I've had the privilege to work with it in my lab for a long time now, through the first 2 or 3 betas, all the way down to the release code in version 12 now. I want you to understand the differences that are there. Okay, so let's talk about the SOBR, okay, which is the scale out backup repository, okay? And this is our SOBR, which is scale out backup repository. Okay, and these are built into 2 sections. Now, let me move a little bit to the side. I want you to be able to see what I'm doing here. SOBRs are built in 2 parts. Okay, and this is currently in version 11A. Okay, they have a performance tier. Okay, that's something like a Nimble, NetApp, EMC, Pure, something that's fast and quick. And then they also have a capacity portion of this, okay? And this is our object storage, and this is Cloudian. Currently in version 11, okay, 11A, which is the most current version, those backups are written and dumped into the first part of the SOBR, which is our performance tier. Okay, every 4 hours by default, and you can adjust this, but this video is not about that. Every 4 hours, it's going to sweep and find out if the data sitting in the first half of this repository is ready to be uploaded into object storage. It'll go out and sweep and say, hey, what's my retention period? How do I have this set to move? Is this going to copy this data, or does it hold it X number of days? Once it gets to that, then it's going to take that data and move it into object storage. Okay, object storage then is our immutable component if we've got object lock turned on, or it's just our long-term retention. Okay, now in seeing all these things and how well this works, this is how it's worked for a long time, and it does a great job. You get immutability, you get that long-term, low-cost on-prem storage out of Cloudian. Here's the game changer. Check this out. We're going to still be doing our backups into this, But this is what our sober is going to look like now. Get this out of the way. Let me change marker colors. Inside of here now, this sober, and it doesn't have to be a sober, it could just be a regular repository. And this could be just a repo. Okay, S3 Direct. Or inside of this sober, I can put S3, bucket number 1, S3, bucket number 2, S3, bucket number 3, and it's going to dump those backups direct to object. Forget having to use that high performance expensive storage. It's going right to object. This particular sober is allowing us to split those backups between 3 separate buckets. Better efficiency, better performance, better ability to store that information, because we know Veeam writes a ton of objects. Fine, we've got it, okay? Or we can have individual repos, which again are what each one of these buckets are. If we pull down and look in another video that I'll show you to run our backups, I could have 50 different repos in there, all going to different buckets, different locations, and I can pick and choose where I'm going to send these backups to, and it will write directly to object storage. Now, what is that going to do? That's going to eliminate the need for that expensive Pure, Nimble, NetApp, whatever those are, out the door. Now you can use the object storage on-prem Cloudian and write your backups direct to it, okay? Now the solution no longer takes all this hardware to make it happen. V12, pumping those backups right here. You can restore from these, you get the mutability aspect of this, you get the replication piece that the Cloudian can do on top of all the bells and whistles that V12 will do with moving backup jobs, copy jobs, all those things around. And you can restore from it just like you did before with the performance side of things. Now, tests in our lab show that it is just as quick to restore from object storage as it is from something else like a NetApp or a Nimble. You be the judge of what this is. This is game changing for you. It puts money in the customer's pocket, okay, because they're not having to buy that expensive performance tier. And it puts Cloudian, which is a multi-use tool, not just for backups, but so much more, into their data center to future-proof their data center and getting the most bang for your buck out of Veeam 12. Now, if you have questions, drop me an email, pick up the phone, give me a call. This is game-changing stuff, and we really appreciate you listening to us. Thanks so very much.
Well, I wanted to take a minute to walk you through the new version, Veeam 12, and some of the really cool features that are here now that are based specifically to use object storage. I've created some normal backups in here, and you can see that there are some disk backups as well as stuff sitting in object. But let me show you the cool stuff. If we scroll down into the infrastructure itself and we look at the backup repositories, here's various Cloudians. These are all S3s. There's the default repository that comes with it. And I created a couple of NAS NFS mounts that I just wanted to have just to show you what was here. Okay, if we go and look at the first piece that's here, let's look at the only sober that I built. It's called multi-bucket. There are 3 individual buckets, but they are designed to go into this individual sober. You'll notice there's no performance tier in here. These are all just individual buckets that are sitting out in S3 object storage, which is very cool. So now let's go back up to home. If we take a look at one of these individual jobs, and before I show you the sober, I'll show you what a job looks like now. I'm going to right click and edit this. This is going to bring up our job. Here's our virtual machines telling us what we're going to drop into this particular backup. Here's our storage. This is where it gets really cool. Now, backup repository. Look at the choices I have. You notice that this is an S3 bingo, writing direct to object storage. Here's all my choices. Look at those individual Cloudian buckets that are there. They give us an option to go direct to object storage. No hop, no skip, no jump, right to object storage from there. Okay, and we'll leave this as we found it. I can set my retention policy as I normally would. Okay, underneath advanced, now if I go over to storage and then look at my storage optimization, it's different now. It gives me the actual sizing that I want to use. Obviously, the larger within object storage, the better it is. But now, by even default, they recommend 1 meg size, which is going to help millions of times better than what was being written before in earlier versions, which were billions and billions of little tiny objects. So this is good stuff, okay? Really good stuff. So we'll cancel that. So our proxy is going to pick automatically as usual. Pick any repository we want. Doesn't have to be a sober. I can go direct to a bucket, which of course you just saw me do. Other processes are still the same. Okay, scheduling is very much the same. And summary of what we're doing, same. Okay, huge difference. Now let's take a look down here if we want to go into, backup infrastructure, and I'm going to right mouse click on this so I can look at the properties of this particular sober. Performance tier, there you go. Multiple buckets right in the performance tier. Capacity tier, I don't even have anything in it. Doesn't matter because it's going to split it up amongst and balance it between those 3 buckets. That's beautiful. Okay. Now, the other piece that we want to look at too is if we go back and look at these backup repositories, take a look at 2 that I've called lock, and those are immutables. Okay. So if we go to home and then let's go look at our backups, and I've named them appropriately lock. Okay, so let's go down in here. You see this is the AD controller for lock. So let's go into object storage. There's the one for lock. And you notice it wrote directly to this. So I'm going to right mouse click this and delete it from disk. I wish this is where I had some Jeopardy music, so we could play some of that. Nope, there's my errors. Bingo. Because it's immutable until the 20th of January is why it won't delete. So it failed to delete the backup. So my immutability is there via writing directly to that object bucket on the Cloudian. No hop, skip, jump, as I said before, directly to object storage. This is a game changer, folks. We no longer have to have something like a Nimble, a NetApp, an EMC product, anything that sits out there. The customer could literally purchase Veeam, purchase a Cloudian appliance cluster, and they're in business for backups with immutable storage in that backup from day one. Plain, simple, nothing more. The restores work just as well as if they're coming back off of something like a NetApp or a Nimble. Great stuff. I wanted you all to get a chance to see this. That's just how simple it runs. Thanks so much for watching and take care.
We have with us a special guest, Dale Hoffman. So just going back a little bit, my name is Amit Rawlani. I am the Senior Director of Technology Alliances at Cloudian, and my very good friend, Dale Hoffman here, Director of Global Alliances and Business Development at Veeam, is our chief guest. And I'd like to extend a warm welcome to Dale. And Dale, we're glad to have you on this webcast with us, where we're going to talk a little bit about how Veeam and Cloudian, with our resellers, are a perfect match for data protection. Welcome, Dale.
Yes, thank you, Amit and Andreas.
So Dale, before we dive into Veeam v12, which obviously is the flavor of the day, Valentine's Day, V-Day, V12 Day, as you like it. Let's touch a little bit about on our relationship. I mean, we talk almost every week or maybe more times a week, but let's give our audience a little flavor of what the relationship and the partnership is like.
Yeah, and thank you. Yeah, thank you, Amit. So, first of all, thank you for having me today. Cloudian has been such a valued partner. We've really treasured the relationship and the partnership that we've had with Cloudian. I've heard nothing but good things from Cloudian sellers, Veeam sellers, our own, technical folks. And the fact that our products, I think, they complement each other very, very well, where Veeam essentially provides a lot of that backup and recovery. And of course, Cloudian protects that data in the object storage. It's just, I think, a really good relationship. And I really think there's even going to be taking it to the next level, because we're coming up with a new global alliance opportunity management process where we're going to work a little bit closer together in terms of sharing, pipeline and leads and trying to do more co-sales. So I think the future is going to even be brighter for both of us and such. Now, if you think about what are some of the driving forces that are out there, we all understand what's going on from a ransomware, perspective. I mean, we see it in the news almost every single day. And this is where I really think, Veeam, with the technology that we bring to the table, and Cloudian with your hyperstore, with object lock for the tight, I'll call it airtight immutability, can really help a lot of our mutual customer base, so that if they are attacked by ransomware, we essentially can help them recover very, very fast and get back into production. And another example that comes to mind is some of the things that we've done with VMware, in particular their Sovereign Cloud initiative. I think this is going to be something that is very, very big moving forward. And the reason I say that is data sovereignty in all these various geo regions around the world is going to become very, very important. And the fact that VMware chose Cloudian and Veeam as featured products in this, I think, is a good testament to the strengths of our technology and our relationship. And then finally, I remember as a customer of Veeam a few years ago in my previous job, how excited I was for version 11, especially with CDP or continuous data protection, because of the customer base that I had. That was so important to me. And now today I'm in Veeam and we're talking about version 12, and there is just numerous different things going in. The entire company is really excited, about this and such. So I think the big thing is this whole direct right to object storage is something that I think Cloudian's been waiting, as well as our customers, for quite some time. So Amit, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Before I go ahead, right, you mentioned ransomware protection, object log. I do want to mention, from a relationship partnership perspective, that has been the whole area that made our relationship even closer and made it blossom to new heights. We worked with Veeam closely when V10 was launching, which was the object lock release. And, based on what we did with the product team, with the engineering team, we have really worked on making sure that the integration works to the expectation of our customers. I mean, we have several dozen petabyte size customers, and some of the customers actually going into the tens of petabytes for on-prem use cases with Veeam. Now that's almost unheard of in other areas, and that's something that this audience should take out of this conversation, that the integration with Veeam and Cloudian, between Veeam and Cloudian, is more than just a paper integration. It is an integration at the product level, at the engineering level. And that's going to continue with V12. With V12, we've got integrations around SOS API. We worked with the product teams on making sure there's integration on authentication and access controls and a whole gamut of features which your customers, your enterprise customers, are going to expect out of your solution. And especially anytime you get over the 500 terabyte range, that's what you're going to want to see. Okay, with that, let's talk about the most important topic of the day, V12. And Dale, why don't you take us through the whole V12 launch and the V12 feature set that's going to be important for this audience?
Okay, I'd be delighted to, Amit. So first of all, the one that I think everybody's been waiting for is what we're doing with object storage. And before I start on this, I think that our development team, they drastically simplified a lot of the object storage engine, which improves performance and reliability, which is something that I think our mutual customers will benefit from. Also, as part of this smarter object storage, we've simplified a lot of the communications, and the direct result of this is this will lower costs by decreasing the number of API calls. But probably the most important thing in terms of lowering the overall cost is being able to go direct to object storage without having to go through some immediate storage, such as block storage. This will drastically improve I think a lot of the customers' overall costs and such. Also, something that I think that will help Cloudian is this whole idea of protecting files on NAS. So any file that's essentially stored on NAS as a source can now be backed up directly into the Cloudian Hyperstore object storage. And the net result of that is that'll obviously improve a lot of the efficiency and lower costs and such. And then finally, a big theme of what we're doing with version 12, and it really, I think, ties very well into the complete Veeam and Cloudian story, is this whole trust and immutability and such. So we're going to be able to get a lot better efficiency across a lot of multi-clouds and, carry that value proposition throughout wherever the customer is running their workflows. I think the other important thing is being able now to put this multi-factor authentication kind of gives you that one more barrier for a hacker or ransomware attack to get in. So you can kind of stop a lot of those cyber threats at the door. Having our ability with Veeam to actively detect any type of threats or malicious behavior, and being able to get rid of those and clean them out before the data restore into the actual production environment is important. And then finally, we can now do a clean restore within our VRO or our Veeam recovery orchestrator. So now that secure restore is actually part of that orchestrated, recovery. So let's go on to the next chart, and I'll just take you through a high-level, example. So this is just very, very simple, right? Just shows direct to object storage, something I'm sure you guys, very familiar with. But like I said, in the past, we have been able to do our backup jobs, and we had to go through this intermediary storage before we got to object. So now being able to go directly in there, as we said before, is a huge, benefit to our customers in terms of cost. And then likewise, in the picture down below, as part of our 3-2-1, Veeam backup rules, where we like to have at least 3 copies of the data, just kind of showing that you could still, even going direct to object storage, have 2 of those copies where you can go to object storage repository and then back that up too, just from that additional safety measure of having multiple copies. Now, if we go on into the next chart, this is an example just kind of talking about the whole ransomware protection architecture. And we're leveraging, in this particular example, protecting VMware workloads that are running on vSphere. Now, in version 11, what we would do is essentially write that data into various primary backup tiers. And that was really done for anybody that wants to keep, let me call it, some performance tier, that if they want to access that data within, keep 2 weeks or a month's worth of data in there, that they'd be able to do that. One of those was the hardened Linux repository, which you essentially can turn on the immutability right within our GUI, and now carry that immutability from start to finish, meaning from that hardened Linux repository all the way into Cloudian, hyperstore, so that you have complete immutability the whole way. Now, what's changing in version 12? Go to the next chart. Very simple. Go direct into object storage, right into Cloudian hyperstore. You still have the optional path if you wanted that performance tier, but it's no longer a requirement to get into Cloudian hyperstore. So big benefit, big announcement on what we're doing with version 12. And really pleased that Cloudian is enthused and excited about this. And I see a lot of good business for both of our companies moving together. So Amit, I'll turn it back over to you.
And I'll add to this, guys. A lot of you guys out there, our partners, our customers, direct customers have been asking us for a long time, why do I need a primary tier or a performance tier if I don't really need a very, very quick RTO time, for example? And this whole movement towards V12 to direct object with V12 with Veeam, is Veeam actually answering those calls and simplifying your data protection workflow. With the Linux hardened repository, Veeam had added the hardened repository at the performance tier, but there was always this idea that some of the competitors would use about the performance tier not having immutability at the NAS layer, which was typically what enterprise customers ended up using. And this again is a no gap alternative with immutability that Veeam has answered, and it's going direct to object storage, which is where most of the enterprise customers are going to for their backup needs. And now with Veeam and Cloudian with V12, you have a direct to object route, which actually protects your data end to end in a one-click manner. What this does for you is simple, right? Clearly, it is reducing complexity by taking out one tier that you could use. That's still an option, but you don't have to use that. So if you want to simplify your architecture, you are able to do that. End-to-end immutability in one click, which is what I just mentioned. And then the third thing is, obviously, if your performance tier is no longer required and you're no longer doing it, that's a huge cost savings to you. Because remember, if you're an enterprise customer, you're using a NAS file or in some cases even block storage. That's expensive, and it can be as much as 40 to 50% of the storage cost of the whole solution. And our customers, as they use this architecture of Veeam backing up into the server on object storage, you are also looking at the right architecture, right object sizes, which can have a huge impact on the kind of performance tier you need, further needing you to add more of that storage, and therefore adding a lot of cost to the whole thing. So the cost reduction is going to be a huge one for your customers. It is a simplification of the architecture, end-to-end ransomware protections without a gap, single click. That's actually important. And it's up to 70% TCO over older versions and going to the cloud and other storage options, right? Trouble-free integration. You guys know Cloudian has been Veeam ready, object certified, object immutability certified for more than 3 years now. The integration works. We have very, very deep integrations with Veeam v12, and your customers will see it as they scale. This solution will scale better than any other solution out there, right? With that, I'm going to turn it back to Andrea to wrap it up.
Sounds good. Thank you very much for joining us today, Dale Hoffman of Veeam, our honored guest. And thanks, Amit. It was a great presentation, guys, that really covered, I think, everything, at least at a high level that we're going to be doing new with Veeam v12. Happy V12 Day. And remember, as you see there on the screen, for everything you need to know about Veeam v12, go to cloudian.com/Veeam. Thanks so much for joining, everybody, and have a fantastic day.
Thanks, folks. Thanks, Dale. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Bye.